Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Josh. Welcome back to another video. And finally, I've been wanting to talk about the Resident Evil 4 remake and the Dead Space remake for quite some time now. So I know I'm slightly a little bit late to the party. I know it's been like, what, a few days now. But what can I say? That the hype is real for sure. This isn't just something that you could just look at and be like, okay, it is what it is. It's a new game. No, this is honestly something that's pretty big, in my opinion. And now, not sure if anybody tuned in, but actually a few days ago or so, I actually was making this exact same video. I was like going over, it was live, of course. It was another one of my live videos, like I always do. Basically discussing the game and all that. Both the new games. And I don't know what happened. I honestly don't remember. I remember the video, it never ended up getting uploaded. So I pretty much had to go in and just do it all over again. So yeah, this is all live right now, at like almost 9 o'clock, sort of. I mean, it's 8:50 right now, but I don't know about where you guys are. Anyway, finally, let's talk about Resident Evil 4 remake and the Dead Space remake. Two video games, which I'm going to be very honest, there's going to be some tight competition next year, especially considering where it's only a bit of a few months in between. If I remember correctly, I think Dead Space remake is supposed to come out in January of next year, and then Resident Evil 4 comes out on March 24th of next year. So I'm just saying, the reason why I've been wanting to make this video for so long is because these are both generally like I like historical games right here, though. Honestly, Resident Evil 4, especially in consideration, it's considered not only one of the best Resident Evil games in the series, but it's also considered one of the best video games of all time, And that might sound like a big stretch for some people. Maybe some of you are like, "Oh, I don't even think the game was that good or whatever." Because yes, the game does have its fair share of people that don't really like it because it's, I don't know, modern Resident Evil. I don't know. Some people basically had that whole kind of thing against the later Resident Evil games, where it's like they focus on a much more action-oriented based game instead of just horror, where that's kind of what went into the downfall of Resident Evil 5 and 6, where people complain that they shouldn't even be considered horror. It's just flat out shooting at that point, but even though personally I disagree, I mean, I don't know, it is what it is, I guess, but still. And then when it comes to let's talk about Dead Space for a second too. Dead Space is another game that there's just something about it that just makes it just downright interesting. It's the type of game where it's like you could play it as many times as you want, and it's still scary. It has that disturbing kind of atmosphere to it. Now, before I move on, of course, people, because I like to be informative and all that. Some of you are probably not too familiar with these games, right? So, if not, of course, I gotta explain. I gotta tell you what's Resident Evil 4 and then what's Dead Space, right? Yeah, I mean, I would assume we all know what Resident Evil is, but Dead Space, I know that that's a bit of a there's only. Dead Space came out back in 2008, had 3 video games, of course. Resident Evil, it's a franchise that's still going strong to this day, so I guess I'll explain, a little bit about Resident Evil, because I know that there is a bit of a history towards 4, and then of course we'll talk into Dead Space, So with Resident Evil 4, it came out back in 2005. I believe it came out first on GameCube, but then eventually came out on the other consoles, like on PS2. I'm not too sure, because around the time of Capcom and Nintendo, they were doing like some sort of weird deal together where their games would be like on GameCube exclusive, sort of, and that definitely did happen. Yeah, Resident Evil 1 remake and Resident Evil 0 both came out on the GameCube, of course. And even before that too, there were just mostly spin-offs of Resident Evil, basically. There was just like, you got Survivor, which was god awful in my opinion. Then you got some of the the very, very most notable ones, which is Code Veronica. In fact, I'm even surprised that it's considered a spin-off. It's obviously a sequel, because the game pretty much sets up the whole the worst is yet to come kind of aspect, considering that Wesker was in the game, even though technically he died in the first one. But that's kind of the weird thing, right? The first Resident Evil game was basically about a whole group of like police officers called the STARS team. They go and investigate this mansion, and the next thing you know, bad shit happened. So of course, the whole idea behind Resident Evil was that it's a survival horror, right? So basically, you find whatever items you need to survive, and you got to conserve your ammo, and you pretty much got to decide: are you gonna use them to fight against the zombies or whatever, or are you gonna have to just save that up for in case something really bad happens? Because all in all, when you look back at the original Resident Evil game, it's kind of a batshit insane game to begin with. You're basically you think you're just doing your normal search and whatever. There's some missing people. Okay, let's go check it out. No, there's zombies. There's uh giant spiders. There you go. There's a giant mutant shark. His name Neptune. Okay, a giant snake. It's pretty much it's a weird game, but it worked. Even though the game came out in like 1995, but still it held up pretty well, and we got two more games after that too. But that was kind of the weird thing too. Resident Evil, it kind of felt like they wanted to just do a trilogy, because pretty much after that it was like what else was next, because most of the games, like I mentioned, they were just mostly spin-offs. You had like Resident Evil Outbreak, which was a multiplayer type game. That's something that people really want to come back. People desperately want Resident Evil Outbreak to make a return, but so far we haven't really gotten that. And while I personally don't really care too much about Outbreak, I could kind of understand why people want it back. I get it. It was neat because it basically took place during the Raccoon City incident, except, well, more weird, batshit, crazy stuff happened. And, I'm not going to get too much into the gist of it. I just want to focus on just a few aspects of Resident Evil 4's beginnings. Because, like I said, Capcom pretty much got lost. They didn't really know exactly what to do with the franchise after that. There were ideas here and there, but they didn't really had any sort of like a sort of what can they do basically, right? They were running out of ideas until they had like this one idea where Leon would kind of work with like this new group, and Wesker was a part of it apparently, and then you would be chased by this weird tentacle creature, which eventually people most likely probably think that that's it was sort of meant to be Ouroboros from Resident Evil 5, but that's not really clear. Basically, Resident Evil 4 definitely had a bit of a weird development within its time, obviously. The game that we got was definitely not what it was going to be before. There was going to be a whole bunch of other stuff. And they were even going to go as far as to put ghosts, which I'm not joking. That was actually something they were considering. I won't go too much into it because, let's be honest, it's kind of a headache. There was definitely going to be some sort of like religious cult involved too, and all that. I mean, technically, they did end up in the final game, of course. They're like, for crying out loud, they're like freaking. They praised the Las Plagas and all that. And yeah, that's basically what Resident Evil 4 pretty much went down to. The whole story behind it is that Leon, now he's a government agent, and he's trying to help rescue the president's daughter, Ashley, not knowing that where he's going, it's kind of a shit show. He goes into a weird small village in Europe, and the next thing you know, we get introduced to Chainsaw Ganado, which, yes, that's something I want to make clear right now. Like, that's just so scary. Like, you get like these crazy villagers, and then you get like that one guy with a chainsaw, and it's like, damn, and he instantly kills you and all that. That's horrifying to me, at least. I don't know. Maybe I'm a giant pussy. Honestly, I don't know. But basically, the game did something different. It wasn't really how it was before when you were just fighting zombies. Not to mention the whole surviving aspect to it too. Instead of I don't got much ammo, what should I save it, or should I just flat out use it on these enemies that's gonna get in my way? No, they pretty much changed that. It was pretty much like, okay, you better get these guns, get the shotgun, get the Magnum, go to the merchant, buy whatever you need, because you're going to be facing a whole lot of monsters and all that. And it's like, that's pretty much what it kind of went down to. And that was sort of kind of the beginning of the whole action aspect of Resident Evil, where people pretty much complained that now it was starting to turn into more of a shooter than an actual horror survival. And like I say, personally, I don't think that's really the case. I think what happened is obviously trying to make something scary is kind of hard, So that's definitely going to be a challenge for these remakes for sure. Because one thing that people definitely noticed with the trailer was that the game downright looks scary. It has a much dark atmosphere to it, And a part of me is like, oh no, don't be a dark game. This is gonna be a very, very dark game. Like my room, like with the lighting and all that. But nah, they do show like some different perspectives. They show like the freaking towers and all that. So it's like, okay, no, I think everything is I think Resident Evil 4 remake is looking pretty solid so far, right? Pretty much judging by the trailer, it looks like that it's definitely gonna be a faithful adaptation. I think it will definitely try and respect what made the original Resident Evil 4 special, but at the same time, it makes sense that people are kind of worried, especially with how the previous remake did. Now, for those of you who don't know, with Capcom, they're doing like a whole like kind of a re-engine type thing, basically. Our Resident Evil 7 was kind of the start of that aspect to it. It's kind of like a style almost. Basically, it was like almost hyper realistic and all that, and then the like improvements and all that. They even went as far as to, of course, remake Resident Evil 2, and a lot of people consider that one of the best Resident Evil games in the series. And it's not hard to see why. Resident Evil 2 remake, I think, is banger. I think it's awesome. And the thing with Resident Evil 3 remake was that I think it did the job fine. Understandably, it didn't live up to the hype, but personally, deep down, I think it still holds up in a way only because I think it got the idea down. We understand what they were trying to do, but obviously the reason why Resident Evil 3 remake fell so hard was because it was rushed and a lot of content was taken out from the original. So people were very worried if that was going to happen with Resident Evil 4 remake. It's because, well, I don't know. I find this annoying personally, but I remember there were even YouTubers going as far as to talk about, what content are they going to remove? And it's like, but we don't really know exactly what they're going to do, because around that time, there was really no development news and all that, really. We were just kind of getting speculations and all that. I don't remember the whole story, but there was at one point, there was even a person that was like, not spoiling, but giving off like hints of what's to become of the franchise. And I remember he predicted some of the stuff with Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Village, basically, and everything that person said up to the point was he was right about everything, you know. So Resident Evil 4, I remember there was like talk and all that. The original creator of 4, he was kind of in on it. He was like, I wonder, can they do my game good or can they do it dirty? Who knows, right? And I even heard some stories that apparently the team that worked on Resident Evil 3 remake originally was gonna work on Resident Evil 4 remake, but eventually they ended up getting kicked out. They were like, "Nah, we don't want you working on this game no more. We're gonna hire other people now." Uh, I don't know how true that statement is. I wouldn't be surprised though, because of how Resident Evil 3 remake was, how it was, how it was met. Is it the worst game? No, because I definitely see a lot of people call it a bad game, a terrible game. I'm like, okay, no, that's a bit much. I think, I agree, it's short, but it's not the worst Resident Evil game. So I don't think, we should have too much doubts about Resident Evil 4. I don't have no doubt at all, but admittedly, it's kind of scary too. I mean, to live up to what, how the original 4 Resident Evil game did, like that's tough, especially, and we'll talk about Dead Space in a second. I just gotta say this right now, right? Resident Evil 4, that's a hard game to really kind of do a remake of. It's a type of game, same goes for Dead Space, where you can't really imagine it getting a remake. Like, it's really, really scary to see it get screwed over. I'd be surprised if the game came out and then it flops. That's going to be very, very heartbreaking. I mean, we're still gonna buy it and talk about it anyway, so it is what it is, I guess. It comes out next year. Uh, it's gonna be on PS5. I don't think it's coming on PS4. Um, which is to be expected if I'm being honest. So that's not my main argument right here. The main thing I'm trying to say is that Resident Evil 4, the original, is very historical in many ways. So will this game, will it be good? Will it be average? Will it be worse? I mean, I highly doubt it. I mean, have you seen the way it looks? It honestly looks good. and we don't really see much like gameplay of it exactly. So I would assume that later down the line we will see more stuff about it. But until then, who knows what's gonna become of it? And I hope that it does good. And in some ways, I kind of hope that it does better than the original, because a lot of these remakes actually have a lot of good potential behind it. So I kind of hate that a lot of people, because we got one bad remake, they think that this next one is also gonna be bad. I try not to think of it like that. I try to think as positive as I can. And I know that's pretty hard to say because you don't want to waste your hard-earned money, especially with how expensive everything is now, and then the game ends up being crap. But I'm just saying, you know, let's not jump to that conclusion too quick. Let's just wait to see when it gets there. And I don't know, let's just hope for the best. Let's see. Like I say, will it be better than the original? Will it be meh? Or will it be worse? I don't know. Now let's talk about Dead Space. Why? Because it's the same thing with Resident Evil 4. These are both games that are just fantastic. They are both phenomenal horror games that it is so hard to think that they're both getting a remake. Not to mention that they're coming out in the same year, almost around the same time, except not really. Now, the story behind Dead Space, it was created by EA, which is very infamous for being very money hungry, especially with their microtransactions. And to be fair, that is kind of what led to the semi downfall of Dead Space 3, which, again, it's not a bad game, but that game definitely had some issues when it came to microtransactions and all of that because of some downloadable content. Long story short, you shouldn't have to spend money on a better gun when later during the game you can just build your own goddamn weapon, because yes, that was something that Dead Space 3 had. It actually gave you the option to want to build weapons and all that. I wouldn't say option, but I don't know. The problem with that function is that I feel like once you get whatever weapons you need, I think you're pretty much said and done. But whatever. The game tries to do more than what it is, and it's okay. I get what it's trying to do. It's not trying to be like the first two, but it is what it is. Now I'm going a little bit ahead of myself. I gotta talk about the first game, obviously, because even though both games are horror, uh, got some interesting aspects to it. Dead Space takes place in the future, and you're a guy named Isaac who works as an engineer, and you and your crew is basically heading to this place called the Ishimura. It's like a ship fortress thing. I don't know what to call it. Something in outer space. Let's call it that, right? And you try to find out what happened to it. Next thing you know, there's like these people infected, but they're not zombies. They're like these weird, I don't even know how to describe it though. They're the most horrifying things you can ever think of. They're called necromorphs basically though. And they're basically what's left over of the people, but just all jumbled up. And they grow extra limbs, and they got like giant claw things out of their hands. That's all I could really describe them exactly. Because yeah, they are aliens though. You do discover that eventually. The reason why people got like that is because of some sort of artifact. Now, I'm being very blatant because, well, not blatant, but I'm being very, damn, I had the word in my head, but I forgot. I'm trying to be very, I guess, minimal, right? I don't want to spoil these games, obviously. I want you guys to explore them for yourselves. If you ever want to play these games, I mean, but we'll get to that. I'll explain that in a bit later towards the end of the video. But basically, it kind of it sort of had the idea where you got your guns and whatever, and throughout the whole game, you're not actually using guns. You're using like engineer weapons, like plasma cutters and all that, though. And you're fighting against the aliens and all that. It's like, it's interesting because they're not actual guns. And that's because throughout logs and stuff and different like files that you will find in the game, you will learn like how the creatures, they're somewhat resistant to the weapons that a lot of the soldiers try to use. You try to, of course, discover what happened, and on the other hand, you're trying to find your girlfriend. Yes, that's also the other thing too. Isaac, he has a girlfriend named Nicole. You're trying to find her throughout the whole thing, and well, I won't spoil that. That honestly, I think you gotta find it on your own, because it's like, it's sad, but at the same time, is it surprising? I mean, especially with the events that unfold, and now both games are pretty long. So I think you'll definitely get your fair share of like, some like plotting and all that. You get to pretty much discover like, who's the bad, who's the good, what happened. Oh, okay, this is the solution. This is the not good solution. Basically, that's how I kind of think of it, right? Now, like I said, these are both honestly really good games. So both of them getting a remake, that's going to be it's tough. You know, it's tough competition, and on top of that, it's only like if they're even good to begin with, obviously, because the thing with remakes is that they're pretty hard. You know, whenever you hear that, you either think companies trying to like gain some money out of it and whatever, you know, or maybe they're trying to be faithful to the originals, but also make something better. Because let's face it, sometimes remakes can be better than the original thing. Resident Evil 2 remake, for an example, it's I think I would definitely say it lives up. You know, it respects what made the original good, you know, but kind of amps it and does it very perfect. You know, it doesn't go too far ahead. You know, it doesn't go too extreme, but at the same time, it does improve a lot of stuff from the original. So we gotta think of it like that. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, of course, remakes. Well, I'm trying not to look at it too much through a movie perspective because you guys know that I'm kind of a huge movie person, you know, so I don't want to use that perspective because obviously movie remakes tend to be not too good. So people obviously take that aspect and then they put it into video games and then they're going to think that the games are not going to be that good, even though we don't really know that for sure until you either watch some gameplay or try it out, you know. Listen, I like to explore. I like to actually check out you know, if these games are going to succeed or not. All right. You know, these are both games that I grew up with. You probably did too. So it makes sense. You know, you hope that they do good. And even if they do, well, like I say, this is a tough one. You got both of these games fighting each other. You got Resident Evil 4 and then you got Dead Space. And it's like, okay, who's going to be the winner? Obviously, you know, because even if they end up sucking, at least you got the originals, but still, you don't want them to suck. Nobody does. You want it to succeed as much as possible. So until then, we will have to wait next year for that. So yeah, there goes my video with Resident Evil 4 remake versus Dead Space remake. I mean, who knows? Let's see what's gonna happen, right? Whose side are you on? You know, or do you not care who wins? Tell me. Let me know. I want to know your thoughts. So yeah, before I end the video, I want to say I do apologize a little bit if I'm kind of. That was my phone. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, I do apologize if I'm like kind of like speaking a little bit funny, you know. I mean, this I did a video earlier today, and admittedly I wasn't feeling too good, but I do feel a little better now. Just a little bit of a workout in the gym, that's all. So it kind of gets to you sometimes, especially when you work out and all that. And you know, it's been a while since I did like these talk videos and all that. So I know that I'm a little bit out of practice, you know, so I do apologize if I keep making like, you know, if I keep doing that or messing up my words, you know, I'll try not to do that next time because I know that that can be a problem, you know, and sometimes that happens when you make videos like these, you know, you try to be consistent, but it can be pretty hard sometimes. My phone is blowing up. Okay, let me just put it away. Anyway, so what's gonna be my next videos? Even though I always make everything a surprise, I started the toy reviews. Obviously, I started it for Ultraman. The next one, I believe, is gonna be Antler, if I remember correctly. You know, and of course, lately I've been doing nothing but like the whole stupid eBay package unboxing videos, basically. And you know, sometimes whenever they come in, I just gotta do it. You know, I'm just gonna. That's just how it is. You know how I am, right? So until then, see you guys eventually. You know, I'll see you guys soon. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. And my phone just fell. Great. All right. Ooh. Anyway, all right. I'll see you guys in the next video. So peace out. That was terrible.